So I actually wanted to start off by talking to you about your personality. You've said you have no friends.
This is true, and everybody gets upset about this, but
do you really believe that?
yeah, because I have people, they are close to me, because I like them, I trust them, and very often I work with them. There's one guy, Attila Dogudan, who I started in my airline business to work with him as a caterer for me. And to Attila, I always had a fantastic relationship because we grew each other's companies up. He was growing his catering up. He's now one of the biggest caterer in the world. I grew my airlines up. So it all worked very well. But Attila, for example, never really answers his phone. So when you ring him, he doesn't bother even to ring back. And you can see my number, who is calling. So, and then I said once in an interview like now, I have no friends. And then he rang me and said, are you nuts? I mean, I thought, I'm your friend. He said, no, you're not my friend. Why? Because let's say I have a problem. I don't know, I have an accident or I drink too much and I can't find my way home. I would like to ring you if you are my friend. Take me home. But you never answer your phone. And then you answer 3 days later. So a friend is a friend, 24 hours. And therefore, this is my way of thinking about it. But this is not all of that. The problem is when you get known in the world, a lot of people bother you. They want to be your friend because, and this and that, and this is...
Everybody needs something.
Correct. And therefore, I protected myself against these constant attacks. Somebody says, I'm your friend, and can you do this, and can you do that, or I want an autograph, or whatever. And to stop all this, in a way, I protected myself and said, where are the real friends? A real friend is a 24-hour guy who can talk about any kind of problems you have. And I tell you, honestly, I would not know one where I would do that, because I protected myself.
Your ex-wife once said during your racing career, you were the biggest in the world. What do you think of that?
No, she was completely right. She said egocentric too, because in my times where it was very dangerous to drive, I had to put myself into a position that I 100% concentrate on my job. If I do a mistake, I kill myself, and I cannot be disturbed by anything of my 100% concentration, more or less to stay alive over the race weekend. That means you have to block everything out and then do the job. And this ended up in a way that she hated racing. She hated that I've been a racing driver because her reaction was logic, crazy. I want a husband to be at home and stay alive. So, and therefore, she said all that, and from her point of view, she was right. But on the other hand, she said to me, after the accident, she was looking at me all the time, and I know what she was thinking. I hope he's gonna stop now. I hope he's gonna stop now. And I did not, because I wanted to prove to myself that I could overcome all these problems I had. And I wanted to see, after a terrible accident like this, can I be back on top again? This was my new target I set myself. For her, completely wrong, because she says, after the accident, and when I went back, she said, when you come home one day, and you've broken your arm again, I will not put the butter on your bread. Yeah, I tell you, I hate it, I won't do anything with this. It's your responsibility, but I can tell you one thing, I'll let you do it. Because I know, I don't think I can change your mind anyway, but I give you the full freedom. But don't let me put the butter on your bread, then you have to do it yourself with your plaster. This was her decision to protect herself. Because again, this was her and the kids in the end, and she had to find a way to cope with all that. So I understand her arguments, I understand her say, that I was an she for sure thought about it sometimes. But in the end, she was a fantastic woman in these difficult situations for her to still support me 100%.
You were your number one priority, basically, during that time. What about now?
Now it's all different because, first of all, I'm not racing anymore. I have a normal life, I would say. None of this danger.
But you still have the same dedication to excellence.
Yeah, but if you ask my so-called friends if I've changed, they say, because my wife Birgit now and my 8-year-old kids, Max and Mia, when Birgit argues with me about something, and then some of them who know me from the past say to Birgit, do you know how he was before? Huh? I said, why? What are you talking about? So what I'm trying to say is that I changed completely from my point of view.
How so?
Because the danger and the egocentric part is not anymore important to save my own life. I'm now a normal person.
I mean, in what ways have you changed?
Being easy to cope with, not egocentric anymore in that way, maybe still a little bit, and much easier, open, easy to live with, I think. You have to ask my wife, but it is true. And I changed completely. Honestly, what I had to go through in the past, which none of these people believe today, because in the 70s, 80s, these cars were so dangerous that every year 1 or 2 got killed. So you had to find your own way to cope with all that. And all this pressure is gone. So I think I'm a completely normal person now, taking care of the family, taking care of everything, but the priorities are still that I have to work. I can tell you another example. I have on Friday, tomorrow actually, my marriage anniversary of 10 years married. I know her 15 years. And she asked me a couple of weeks ago, what are we going to do on our marriage day? So I said, we're going to go out and I make fun for you and whatever. But I didn't look in my diary, and it's the Spa weekend. So then I found out, and then I said to her, listen, I'm sorry, but Friday I'm not here. Why? Because I'm in Spa. Oh, you're in Spa. Oh. Why don't you go on Saturday to Spa? Hello? I cannot. It's my job. I go on Friday to Spa, but we can go on Thursday for dinner instead of Friday. Thursday I want to go for dinner. Anyway, to make a long story short, she was not happy, like a lot of women do. But in the end, then I have to say to her, listen, this is our job. I have to do my job. And if we lose the race because I went with you for dinner on Friday and haven't been there, I will get problems.
So then how'd she take it when the plans blow up and you have to fly to Spa Thursday night, no longer able to do the anniversary dinner?
I wanted to go tonight, but now I had to fly Thursday. And I have to do something tomorrow from Spa to Vienna. And I just thought about it before I came here, what I have to do with the flower, whatever. And I will find something and do it properly, but unfortunately, I have to be in Spa. So now you can say you are egocentric.
Why not just fly her to Spa? And
this is what I offered. This was the easy way. And then she said, I come to Monza, you know that. Why the hell do you want me to come to Spa where the rain is pissing down and it's terrible weather? Which normally is the case in Spa. Spa is not very entertaining, I have to say. So she said, I'm not coming to Spa. So fine, then I have to be, and that's it. So we all laugh about it in the end, but this is the discussions we sometimes have. So you can still argue you're egocentric. I say I'm not egocentric, I have to do my job.
How do you view punctuality?
It's very simple. I'm always 15 minutes ahead of any time because I do not want to panic myself in the last moment. I always tell to myself, if I puncture and I have to change my wheel, I still have to be on time. So punctuality is for me the number one rule for me, and I expect everybody else around me to be on time.
How true is it that you once left your then CEO at the airport for a plane that you were piloting because he showed up late?
I didn't leave him there but he will never do it again because it was my first trip with Toto Wolff, which is my partner in owning the Mercedes team. We run together the whole operation. I'm the chairman, he's the CEO. So we have a very close relation. We talk every day and whatever. But Toto is what timing is on, always wrong and late and whatever. He's a different man, fine. But on the first trip to Japan, where he asked me if we can fly together, first one, I said yes, be there at 2, whatever the time was, and off we go. So I'm there 15 minutes to 2, because I was on time, and Toto doesn't turn up, he doesn't turn up, and then he came 10 minutes past 2. And then I said, listen, Toto, if you fly with me, we're a flight plan, we have to be on time in Tokyo, and whatever. Anyway, I told him I can't operate like this, and then he said, yeah, sure, you're right. Then we had a long discussion about it, and now it really works very well, because I do not understand why people are late. If you wait for me, I'll be there on time, because I know you wait. This is a respect or normal for me. And I expect the same the other way around, but I don't know why people are always late. Why do they have this panic to run in, they're all sweating and I had traffic, yeah, everybody has traffic. I mean, it's simple to fix. Depart, who gets up early in the morning is even ready early in the afternoon or in the evening. This is my rule.
Right. So you didn't leave him
No,
take
no.
off for Japan?
I didn't, but I
okay.
was close. I have to say I was close.
Were you?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
I don't like it, because if I come on time, I expect the other one to come home.
What did your then CFO say to you once in the car that led you to kicking him out on the highway?
In the airline business, I had a finance guy in Lauda Air working for me, actually, and he was a funny guy from the beginning. And we drove to Salzburg. I took him with me because I had to go there. It was many years ago. And then he said to me, if you want me to continue, I want 10% of the company or 5%, can't remember. But he was working already for me. So, are you nuts? So why do you suddenly, why not? He says, why not? Without me, you cannot run the company. And therefore, I'm in this position now to ask you this. So I said, are you serious? Serious. I pay you, we work together, everything seems to work, and now you want to change everything. Yes, I'm serious. But then I stopped and said, please, get out. And he said, what do you mean? No, I'm serious. Get out and find a way. And why should I drive you to Salzburg, first of all? And then you come and attack me in the middle of the road, which was stupid ideas. So then he went out, I left him there and left.
What was his reaction?
But then he never said anything about the percentage of the company. He worked better than before.
Oh, you let him stay on?
Yeah, he stayed,
Okay.
yeah, and everything was fine.
So I want to take you back to when you were growing up as a kid. You come from a very prominent Austrian family. You had a chauffeur, cook. How much, if at all, would you say you were spoiled growing up?
My parents did a very good job because, this is a good argument now, a good story now, because I was told, I've seen certainly we have a big house, and my father was the CEO of a very big company here in Austria. He had a driver, he had a car and everything. This was normal for me to grow up. And when my mother decided that the driver of the father should take my brother and me to school, I said to the driver, don't stop in front of the school, stop one road before the school. And he said, why? I have to drop you off at the school. He said, no, please stop here, you're going to walk there. So this was, for me, normal, to be normal and not trying to show off with the driver and the car and all these kind of things. So my parents gave me the right education to, I think, to operate in a normal way. Keep the feet on the ground, be normal. Even there is a driver, don't show it, especially to your friends and kids in school. And now I have a problem because my 8-year-old kids now, I need to find a driver who brings them or picks them up to school, because my wife is now opening a gallery. I have my work, and I'm not always here. Normally I pick them up if I have time, but if I have no time, then somebody else must do it. And now we are thinking of getting a driver. So and now I was thinking this morning, actually.
And I understand you just gave the nanny a driving test.
This is the first thing. Our nanny fell through the driving license exam 4 times.
She failed 4 times?
Failed. 5th time she made it.
How do you fail a driving
And
test?
I
4
got
times?
worried. But I asked then, why did she fail? And I tell you, half is her fault for sure, but half was that she did not take enough lessons. You can choose yourself how many lessons you want to do, and then you go to the exam. Anyway, there were a lot of little problems there. Anyway, now she has the driving license. And now, to avoid the driver being employed, my logic was, I take the nanny, who the kids know and like. She comes from Mongolia, actually. She's a very nice lady. She's with us the last 4 or 5 years, 4 years. And I took her, do you have your license now? She said, yes, so let's get in the car and drive. What? She says, get in and drive. So the poor girl, she hold the steering wheel like this, and then she was not looking right and left. So normal for somebody who just made his 5th test to get the driving license. I drove around with her for about half an hour, but I could not really put the kids in the car with her. So this is my decision. So I told her now, when we are gone over the weekend, take the smart and drive around yourself and try to learn. I hope the car comes back in one piece. But to come back to the driver, if we need a driver, because the nanny cannot cope driving the Mini, the Smart, what car would I take to take the children, pick them up in school? There are 2 solutions. One is the Mercedes GLS from my wife, and the other one is the Smart we have. And my decision will be, I send the driver with a Smart, because I don't want to put my kids in the same position I was many years ago when I was driven to school. I'm sure that I will argue with my wife forever. She will say, are you crazy? This is dangerous. I said, no, the Smart can pass any crash test in the world, and this is a smaller car. So what I'm trying to say is, keep your feet on the ground, never take off, and find the best solution for everything.
Why didn't you get a car initially once you were able to drive?
When I was young?
When you were a young man, right?
No, I started driving when I was 12 years old.
Right.
But
you didn't, like your parents didn't get a car for you immediately, right?
No, they didn't.
Why not?
I don't know. I can tell you. One thing was that my grandfather, who was the tough cook in the family, always said to me, when you pass the Abitur, which is the first, how you call it in English, the first test you have to finish. When you're 18 in school, you get the first grade, whatever you call it. Yeah, when you do this.
Not the high school diploma?
No, when you're 18, 19, the first school you have to pass.
High school?
High school, yeah. When you finish high school, yeah, and then you go and study, yeah.
Right.
When you finish high school, he says, I'm going to buy you a car. My grandfather said, get a car. As I was driving from 12 years on, always on my grandfather's factories, places with tractors, lorries, and cars, I knew how to drive. I made the driving license in the first spot right away when I was 18 and 1 hour old. And then I passed my degree, went to my grandfather, said, here's my degree. And he said, good, fantastic, I like it. And I said, and where's the car? He said, what car? You promised to me you're going to buy me a car. Yeah? So this cannot be the case. And then he said to me, no, misunderstanding. I never said. So I was upset, went home to my father and said, look at this, your dad promised me a car and now I don't get one. And then my father said, don't worry. When I passed my high school, he promised me a horse, which I never got. Yeah? So grandfather was grandfather, I had no car. To answer your question, I had no car. So then I went to my grandmother and said, can you borrow me a little bit of money that I can buy a car? And then I got this first Mini, and then I had a car.
And you became owner of a VW and a Mini overnight, basically, right?
Correct. From her brother gave me the VW when he died. And I have to tell you another thing which I will never forget. My grandmother lived with us because my grandfather divorced at the time. And she had a brother who was a musician. So he had long hair, funny guy, but different to what I expect. And when I came home from school with a tram with my friends, about 12 years old, 13 years old, my uncle was sitting in the front of the tram. And I said to my friends, look, this is my uncle. He looks a bit funny, but he's a musician. And I did not go there and say hello, which I should have done in my education. And this is the last time I saw him, because then we came in the house, he went up to her sister, and I stayed with my parents. And then 5 days later, he died, unfortunately. And I still remember it well, because I should have gone and said hello to him. And I felt terrible when my grandmother wrote the letter he wrote to me and saying, I'm gonna give you my VW. He bought himself a brand new VW at the time, a nice car, and he gave it to me after he died. And then I really honestly felt bad, because I should have been normal and nice. So I will never do this again.
When you were growing up, at least at some point, you were an auto mechanic apprentice. What happened during a routine oil change that affected your role there?
I was so bad in school that my father decided he has to do something. So he pulled me out of school and said, no, you're going to work in this place as learning to be a mechanic. So at the time, school was so boring to me, I thought, why not? To learn something different. But when I realized the hard life there, I quickly changed my mind. But I had some couple of incidents there. The first one was, it was a big car shop where, I don't know, 30 or 40 people worked. And as I was the youngest coming in there, I had to take the notes. Who wants to eat at 10? What kind of sausages or this, how do you call it, this food you're gonna buy in the food shop. So I made the list as good as I could, then went and bought whatever they wanted, and I would say 50% was wrong. Because one wanted the sausage and the cheese, and the other wanted the other way around. And so anyway, I didn't make myself very popular there, because I always screwed one of these things up.
Right.
So one disaster. The next one was panic in the morning, Volvo comes in, oil change. Guy was waiting, he wants to go away quickly, and my guy said, go down, let the oil come out of the thing. So I go down, look up, take this spanner, look at it, turned, couldn't open it, because I was so stupid that I turned it the wrong way around. And you pressed my legs against the wall, and funny enough, I broke the screw. Then I came up and said to my boss, it doesn't open. So he went down, looked at the disaster. You're such an idiot. You turned it the wrong way around. And then he had to explain to this poor guy that the car has to stay for another 2 days because the whole sump has to come off the engine, take it out of the car. So this was my experience. And then I thought, maybe it's better if I learn something properly. Then I went back to my father after 3 months there and said, I want to go back to school. And then he said yes, and then I left this experience and went back to school.
How many times did you fail in school during your education?
Twice in the gymnasium, it's called, in the 3rd and the 5th. And then I was being a mechanic. Then I went back out, came back into the Matura school, which is called, you can go there and do your own study with some afternoon teachers, and then go to the exams. So basically I failed all the time, to be honest. I did all the exams except math and I think religion. There's an exam for religion in Austria. And the other ones all I did, and then I couldn't finish the last two ones. So I was again in
Why
school
couldn't you finish?
because there was time involved. I wanted to had my driving license already. I wanted to move on and had my own ideas, typical like a kid is. And then this girl next to me said, look, I passed my exam and here's the whole thing in writing. The guy behind me said, why don't you take this, put your name on top of it, I can do that for you, and you show it to your stupid parents, and then you have peace. Yeah, because I told him all the stories about it. I said, why not? So I gave him this thing. He changed the name, but you could see from 100 meters that this was modified. Because it is so stupid that you could see it.
Right.
And then I went home, my parents there and said, I passed the exam, here it is. Put it right back into my pocket. Parents happy, kissed me, and everybody was pleased that finally I made it after this long journey to pass the exam. So immediately I threw this piece of paper away, and I was released to do what I wanted to do. Yeah? And then I started to look for racing cars, Mini Coopers, and so on. But this is the way I tried to get out of this mess, being a Lauda educated person and going into the industrial business here in Austria, and wanted to start my own way. And my own way at the time was to try to be a racing driver.
What did your mother say when you finally told her?
She laughed about it because it was so many years later that I was already Formula 1 World Champion. I have to say I delayed it for quite a while, and then it didn't make any difference anymore.
Why did your parents forbid you from racing?
Pure danger, logically, and the main concern was my crazy grandfather, who had a very stubborn, strong personality to say, you have to go in the family business.
Why would they care what your grandfather thinks?
Because my grandfather was so dominating in the family, he educated my father, and the family philosophy in these days was, the kids, when they are capable, have to follow the family's business. And this was the way I was brought up.
How did your parents find out you were racing behind their back?
In these days, all I did, hooked a Mini up the back of a normal road car, and I did this with a friend of mine's father. I asked him for his car, and he borrowed it to me. I went to Carinthia, where the first race was going on, and I raced there. I think I finished second or something. And then I came home, and then my father said, where have you been over the weekend? And I said, does he know now or not? I didn't say anything beforehand. And then I had to explain it to him, unfortunately, and he was really upset.
What did he say?
More upset that I didn't tell him beforehand. So it was not really what I did, it was that I didn't tell him beforehand. And then I said this was wrong. I should have brought him, my mother, no way. Should have brought in on my side and explained this is what I like to do. But in the end, he accepted it, he had to. My mother too, but my mother especially didn't feel well because of logic, danger and all these kind of things. The father was more objective, I would say, to accept it.
How true is it that you believe you wouldn't have as aggressively pursued racing had it not been for your grandfather being so against it?
True, because he gave me an extra kick to fight him, who was a strong man, to fight him for my own ideas. So it helped me to develop quicker out of this, let's say, Lauda, well-protected family business where everything was safe and good. Nobody had to fight for anything in our family at the time. And this particular fight I had with my grandfather, breaking these family rules and fighting the grandfather, gave me first of all the freedom to do what I wanted to, and pushed me harder to be successful in a way.
Explain how a bank told you you could move forward with your Formula One plans only to later back out of their responsibility.
I was driving in Formula V, which is a low-key formula, and had a bank as a sponsor. They paid me very little money, and they were happy with my performance. They saw the pictures in the newspapers, and everything worked well. And when I tried to go into the Formula One business, I needed something like $180,000 to pay for a drive with March. And the bank said, yes, we're going to sponsor in Formula One. We pay you the money for sponsorship because we will have more exposure in the newspapers. And this was all agreed with the CEO and all the marketing people there. And I went over to England and I signed my contract with March at the time. And then when I came back, everything was signed. 3 days later, the bank manager called me and said, Niki, come please, there's a problem. Because in the supervisory board of the bank, we had to pass this sponsorship through the supervisory board because of the amount of money. Your grandfather and his friend turned it down. I said, what? So I signed over there because you told me I can sign it because you said the supervisory board is not a problem, and suddenly it is. He said, yes, unfortunately, nothing I can do. So then I went to see my grandfather. I said, why did you turn this thing down? Because I don't want you to race. I want you to be in our business, and I want you to see the Lauda name on the economy side of the newspapers, not on the sports side. This is the way it is. I think it's unfair because I work with these people long, and I think because you are my grandfather, you could have said yes. You said no, so now I have nothing. So, and this was then the end of my relation with my grandfather anyway. And then I had to find the money again because I signed a contract, and I was educated if I sign a contract, you have to fulfill it. So then I went to another bank and said, could he give me a loan? And he said, why? Because I told him the whole story, and you will never sponsor me because I had the other bank on my helmet. I said, yes, you're right.
So no longer were you looking for a sponsor at this late date. Now you're just looking for a loan
there was no
so
way,
you could fulfill your obligations in the contract.
There was no way in that short time that I find another sponsor. Mm-hmm. So I said, give me a loan, please, of this amount of money. And if you're unfriendly to me, I don't pay any interest for the loan because you have the publicity. The guy said, not a stupid idea. Went over to his bosses, said yes, but one problem we have, what happens if we get killed? Who pays the loan back? So I said, yeah, insurance. Okay, then sign up an insurance for the $180,000, then race, put this thing on, you don't have to pay interest, 5 years you have to pay the money back. So I just made it after my disaster with my grandfather to fulfill my contract and start in Formula One.
To what extent, if at all, do you regret never having repaired the relationship with your grandfather?
Honestly, I tried hard in the beginning. I was always friendly with him and whatever, but he was so different to me in his way that in the end it worked out as it was. I think it was correct. I went my way, he went his way. None of us gave up. These things can happen.
How much, if at all, do you believe he had good intentions and was just maybe handling it improperly?
He was a very old-fashioned, very intelligent, highly rated industrial man. He had nothing to do with racing. He did not even understand in his world what that means. Racing driver is a low-key idiot from his point of view.
What do you think he thought as you started having success in racing?
No, he was not there anymore. Unfortunately, he died before. So he never saw my development. And maybe in the end he would have respected it, but unfortunately he didn't see it anymore.
How much did your parents come around to respect you for the success you had in racing?
My parents then gave up to be against it when they thought that I was successful. My parents got a big hit when I had my accident in '76, because I know that they all came to the hospital and they went through all these problems I had there. The fear of my mother was always there to the end. My father handled it much better.
Did he enjoy watching you race?
He came a couple of times with me. Oh, I can tell you another funny story. When I started in Formula 3, I had no money and nothing. My father knew about it because I never did the mistake again, which I did before, not telling him. Mm-hmm. And I said, listen, I have to go to Nogaro, which is 15 hours away from Vienna, to drive my first Formula 3 race. Do you want to come with me? And he said, yes, I come. Because he had a Mercedes car, company car, and I was thinking, if I drive with him, he will pay the fuel for the car. So we drove all the way down. I drove him down. He came there. He looked at the circuit. And I said, you stay here and look at this. And I was very excited, first race. And my teammate, we both had the same cars in one transporter. My teammate and myself raced against each other in practice. I was following my teammate, and his engine stopped. And I had to pull out, not to hit him, and went into the guardrail and stopped half a meter behind a photographer who was taking pictures to the other way of the direction of the car. So I went up in the air, came down, crashed my car, and stopped. So I got out of the car, I had nothing, so I went to this photographer, tipped him, showed him the car right behind him, so he was not happy. And my poor father was just opposite, seeing the whole thing. And the end was that my car was crashed, my teammate's car worked, and I couldn't race. So we drove 15 hours down the road, stayed there one night and half practice, and then we drove 15 hours back. So it was not a very good first experience for me and my father.
Right. Did he come around to start enjoying the racing experiences?
He watched it, certainly he did. And yes, I would say he respected full my direction of life and being a racing driver. The mother was frightened, as normal. He did a good job for me in a way, much different to my grandfather.
Explain how you had to self-finance your early racing days.
I have to say, it was easier for me to get all these things going because of my grandfather's. The Lauda name in Austria was famous for being an industrial family and whatever. So when I came to a bank, I had at least a little easier entry because they knew what my parents and grandparents did. So to get a loan with all the insurances they needed, maybe it was a bit easier for me than if I would have been nobody, not with the Lauda name, I would say.
But even with that, I mean, you took on a lot of debt. At what point was the debt at its highest, and how much were you in debt for?
I raced 1 year for March, and then in the end of the year, March told me that they're going to be bankrupt and they cannot continue with me. And I tell you, when they told me this in November, the next season was coming up already, all the drivers were fixed. I said, now I'm finished. Because
you really thought that?
Yeah, I tell you, there was one moment which now I laugh about it, but I remember when I drove away from Pista, when I was told that it's over my Formula 1 career because they are not running anymore, I said, what do I do now? And there was a wall coming up in the town where I had to turn a left. And I said, the easiest way is to drive into the wall because I cannot handle this situation now. But this was only, thank God, 1 second. And it was just instant thinking because the problems were so big for me at that time that I didn't have an answer. So I turned left, and then, thank God, with this experience, it was good for the rest of my life, because then I had to do something. So what I did then is I called BRM. BRM was a very famous racing car at the time, where I knew that they always needed money to have a driver. And they called Louis Stanley, who was a very famous in the racing group man who owns this team. And I called him and I said I would like to talk to him. And then he said, yes, I can come to Vienna if you want to, because I said I maybe have some sponsorship. So he turned up in Vienna. We sat on the airport, I will never forget this, with this bank manager who gave me the loan. And I said, I need your help now. You have to make sure that Mr. Stanley thinks you are my sponsor, not my loan man. So please come with me so we look a bit more serious. So Dr. Oertel turned up with me at the airport. Mr. Stanley came from England. After some small talk, he said, let's talk about business. And then he tried to talk to Mr. Oertel. And Mr. Oertel didn't speak English very much. So I said, Sir Stanley, I have to translate. Anyway, we translated forward and backwards and forward and backwards. And in the end, to make a long story short, I said, I will find some sponsorship for him, because he wanted money. But give me time, because now it's November, that I can pay this money in May, the part of the sponsorship. The other guy knew what I was doing, always nodded. I explained it what we're going to do now. Because if I can get in the car in the first race, then maybe I can get out of this mess. And the problem was that they were running 3 cars, Regazzoni, Beltoise, and Vern Schuppan. So then I said, there's one important request. I have to start the season, not Schuppan. Give me the first race. And they give him the second one and so on. But I have a contact with him and said, look, if you want our money in May, then you have to do it that way. So he did it. We came to the first race, and I have to tell you, I really performed well. So I think it was quicker than Beltoise or quicker than Regazzoni, I can't remember, but I really did a very impressive start. Because of that, he then said to me, okay, you drive the second race too. So poor Schuppan was pushed backwards. And then in Kyalami, Regazzoni had an accident, one of my teammates, and burned himself and could not race for 2 races. And then Schuppan could drive because of Regazzoni. So what I'm trying to say is from the first race to the end, I was in the car and performed so well that in Monte Carlo I was running in 3rd position with this BRM, or 4th. And Monte Carlo was the date where I had to bring my money after Monte Carlo. And to make a long story short, Sunday night, Monte Carlo, Stanley said, come up, have dinner with me and my wife. I came up and he said, what about the money? I said, yes, I'm working hard on it. There's some very good prospects because now I'm doing so well and blah, blah, blah. I said, look, I'm convinced that you are good. I give you a contract now without money. So he wouldn't have paid me money, but I had a contract to the end of the year and an option for the following year, which he can pull, and my sponsorship problem was over.
How did that make you feel when you're sitting at dinner and he tells you that?
I was relieved like you do not believe. I was so happy that all this pressure was gone. And I drove home to Salzburg next day, Monday. And in Salzburg, my cousin had a little office with a secretary. And I used the secretary if I had to write some letters. And I always had this joke there to say, when Ferrari calls, call me right away. This was the ongoing joke for 2 years. I came home on Monday afternoon, and the girl said, Ferrari called. What? Ferrari called, here's the number. And then I came to see Ferrari, Mr. Ferrari. He said, doing a good job. He drove in front of my car in Monte Carlo. I want to sign you up. You want to sign me up? Okay.
What did you say?
I said, Mr. Commendatore, I have a little problem. Because I have agreed yesterday with Louis Stanley that I will continue to drive for BRM. I told him straightforward all my sponsorship problems. The old man looked at this guy Gozzi, who was his second man. We sort these things out, he said. How are you going to sort these things out? We're going to sort it out. Sign here. So I said again, you're going to sort it out. You know, I have a contract. Here's an option that I continue. Don't worry, we're going to sort this out. We have lawyers in England, we can do all that.
And did they sort it out?
Oh, wait. So I signed the contract. Yeah? Happy. I mean, to drive a Ferrari the next year, was a sensation for me.
That's the pinnacle.
Correct.
Right.
So, then we came to England in that race. So I was signed for Ferrari, still driving for BIM. This was in '74. Yeah. Came to England, Brands Hatch race. Suddenly, big panic in the paddock on Thursday that there are some legal people coming to put an injunction on the Ferrari transporters. Because Stanley found out that I have signed for Ferrari. And Stanley said, Ferrari wants to do that, I'm going to show them what's going to happen. So panic in the paddock, I knew about it. Ecclestone was running his team Brabham at the time. Ecclestone was the #1 guy in the paddock, team managers.
Bernie Ecclestone, who used to run a team and became
very
later
clever guy.
head of Formula One, right?
In England, I went over to Bernie, which I knew. I said, Bernie, I have a problem. They're going to want to put an injunction on the Ferrari transporter because I signed for them next year. Said nobody can put an injunction on a Ferrari transporter in Brands Hatch for this race, and I'm part of this organization here, whatever. I'm going to sort this thing out. So there was no injunction on the Ferrari transporter, everything worked out. So what I'm trying to say, it was a touch and go, my legal fight with BRM and Ferrari. In the end, nothing happened. I think they made an agreement amongst themselves that I could freely go and everybody was happy.
How did you view Enzo Ferrari at that time?
He was, for me, the most charismatic guy I've ever met in my life. Why? Because he was a very tough cookie, very tough, hard, demanding man for his team, for his car, and for himself. But he was an Italian with a big heart. So there was always this combination with him. If he respected you, and in the end he did respect me, he was hard with me for, like everybody else, but at the same time I knew that he liked you. And when you had this relationship, it was fantastic to work with him. When you were a driver for him, which he did not like, good luck. This was certainly not funny.
What were your impressions of the car, the Ferrari car, the first time you drove
I
it?
drove it in 73 it was. I drove in 73 after the season was stopped, the first time in Fiorano with a Ferrari. And the car was terrible. The car was understeering like hell and did not work at all. Yeah? So because it was obvious. Because Ferrari in 73 stopped halfway through the season racing because the car was so bad. Then in Monza they started again with a little better car, but nowhere good. And then I drove the car the first time. I got out of the car. Piero Ferrari's son was there as an interpreter because I couldn't speak Italian. And the old man said to Piero, ask him how the car is. And I said, the car is understeers like hell, doesn't work, in my normal, straightforward language. And Piero said, you can't say the car is Why? It is I said in English. The old man was listening. And I can't say this to my father. And tell him, the car is no good. Tell him no good, if this is a better word.
But this is Ferrari.
Ferrari standing there. And then Piero said to him, Niki said the car is no good. This little bit I understood. And then the old man said, what did he say? A Ferrari is no good? Yes, it's I said even then. To him direct. And then, I tell you, I said, I made a mistake, I thought. And then nothing happened for 30 seconds, and it was the longest 30 seconds of my life. And then he said, okay, what is it understeers? Front end is wrong, doesn't turn in. The BRM I drove was a perfect handling car, turned in, quick out, quick in. Engine was no good, but this was a good car. This is not a good car. So then he said, okay. Foghieri, who was the engineer in charge of at the time, come here. He spoke English, explained it to him. Lauda said the car is Foghieri was shocked too. And then I said in English to Foghieri, Mauro, you have to fix this car, it's not working. What is not working? The front end. It does not turn in. When you turn the steering wheel, the whole thing goes straight. So how can it go quick? So then the old man said, I have enough of all this bullshit. How much, if Ferrari fixed this car and he has to fix the car, how much can you go quicker? If the understeer is gone. I said, 0.3, maybe 5, in Fiorano.
Of a second.
Yeah. So the old man said, fine.
And that amount of time means everything in racing.
If you don't go 0.5 quicker, you're fired. Why? Because you say the car is you say if you fix it, you can go 0.5 quicker, but if you cannot deliver what you ask me to do, then you have a problem. Goodbye. So we were all standing there. Piero said, Nick, why are you so stupid? Tell him it's a shit car, you can't do that. And then Ferrari was laughing with me in the end. He said, look, Mauro, it is your car, I'm your driver. Let's get together and make this car 1 second quicker. So Ferrari changed the front suspension. We discussed it about the roll center difference and caster difference, all these kind of things. Took Ferrari 5 days to fix this front suspension. It was completely wrong. We did the first test, we were 0.8 quicker. So then my relationship with Ferrari worked out perfect. Ferrari was happy that I fulfilled my obligations. And I tell you, this was the first time where I saw, after we delivered, that he respected me. And I think this was very important. And from then on, I had a very good time with him.
Why, after every time you test drove, did you make a point of having direct contact with Enzo Ferrari, even if that meant going to the factory?
The reason was simply that I did not know, because Ferrari at this time, after his son died on leukemia, he never turned up at the race anymore. This was his decision. So he was only at home watching us testing, but he never went to the race events. And the funny thing was, when races did not go all the way right, and I came on Monday back to speak to him and the engineers, he always had some funny information what happened in the race. It was never that accurate the way we saw it. Then I went to Gozzi, his press man, and I said, who informs Ferrari? Ferrari? I said, Ferrari, did you speak to him last night? No. Who informs Ferrari? Francolini, a journalist of an Italian big newspaper, was Ferrari's friend, which I did not know. And Francolini called him after every practice, after everything, gave him all the information. So, fine. I knew this. And then Ferrari called me on Monday and said, why did you do this wrong, that wrong, this wrong, that wrong? He said, because Francolini has no idea. What do you mean? No, I'm just saying. Francolini has no idea. He's a journalist. I didn't give him the full message, but he knew what I was saying. So, but let's do me a favor. Let me call you after each practice. Let's get Franco out of the way. We're going to do it. Okay, agreed. And from that moment on, it was easier to work with him because we gave him, if we done something wrong, we admitted it right away, not through 3 different channels to come to him. And then we had a very good relationship. The whole racing team attitude changed with him because we gave him the truth right away.
What transpired the time you were with Ferrari during contract negotiations?
He paid me no money at all because I was happy to drive Ferrari. So I did a very good job in the first year. I won a couple of races and I was really getting up to the top. And then he wanted to give me a longer contract. And then I was looking around who gets which money of the other drivers in England. And Ronnie Peterson at the time was the highest paid driver going to Lotus. And then I knew that he was getting $250,000, $300,000 a year per year. And this was the number I had in my head. And as I had 0 before, then he said, no, let's make a new contract. And quante vuoi per guidare per me? What do you want? And I said, 300,000, whatever it was, 3 million shillings was the right way. And he said, okay. Then he picked up the phone, called his accountant de la casa, and he says, quanti in lire 3 milioni di scellini? How much in lire is 3 million shillings? The guy told him the number. What? Put the phone out, screamed at me like you do not believe. How can you ask this amount of money? It is a Ferrari. In a Ferrari, you have to be happy to drive a Ferrari. You know, fine, it's a Ferrari, but you still need a driver to move your car around quick. So I said, I want 3 million, that's it. And he looked at me, called De La Casa again, tried to argue forward and backwards, a little bit up and down. I said, no, please pay, because the other get the same amount of money. It's not unfair what I'm asking you. Ask the English guys what they get. In the end, he paid me. Yeah? And then he was happy anyway after, because we won the World Championship again afterwards. So we won the World Championship afterwards. But then, the biggest mistake I did, I have to say now, in '77, when I left them, I didn't feel being treated right in a way, because he put me in number 2 position for it. So I didn't like that. So then I had another offer from Ecclestone, who had the Brabham team, to leave Ferrari and go to drive the Brabham Alfa Romeo for a lot of money. And then he called me, I signed with Bernie. Ferrari called me to the factory and said, now let's sit down, discuss the future. And normally you do this with him alone, that he does not have to take a decision. But at that time, it was Gary there, De La Casa there, the money man, he was there, Gozzi was there, and I was sitting on the other side of the table, and he says, how much do you want to continue our relationship? Because I just won the World Championship. I said, nothing. What do you mean? No, I'm leaving. You're leaving? Are you crazy? How much do you want? I pay you any money you want. Sir, I have taken a decision. I'm going to drive for Ecclestone, Brabham Alfa Romeo. Unfortunately, I signed a contract. This was the right decision for me at the time. I'm leaving. Then he was not happy.
What did he do?
He screamed around. He talked with his guys in Italian, forward and backwards, but then in the end, there was nothing to do. And when I left this meeting, I will never forget this. I felt light as a feather, because all this pressure I had, which you take every day and you don't realize, suddenly was gone. The Ferrari pressure to perform. And I felt completely happy, I have to say. Looking backwards, it was a big mistake. I should have stayed. I should have asked him the same amount of money what Bernie paid me. I would have been more successful. But at the time, it was for me the right decision, even if it was wrong, because of all this experience after the accident, how difficult was it to get his support back. He put Reutemann in the car, made me a number 2, then I won again the championship. So in all this, I didn't want to forget. I had in the back of my mind. But looking backward, it was wrong to leave him. So to make a long story short, I lost the championship in '76 because of my accident by 1 point. And then I called him right away from Tokyo and said, I'm sorry, I lost the championship, but for me, the conditions to drive were unacceptable. Very simple. And he said to me, Niki, I fully agree. I fully support what you have done. No problem. Then I had to stop for 1 month because I needed another operation here on my eye, and I couldn't be there. Operation was finished. I came down to Ferrari again after 1 month, and I said, now I'm ready, I'm full fit, so let's start again to work. And then he said, yeah, we want to start to work, but I have taken some different decisions now. Mr. Reutemann is the number 1 driver, and you are the number 2 driver. My contract says I'm number 1 driver. Yeah, I know, I don't care. Reutemann, I'm 100% sure, he is the better one than you. You will not recover as quickly as you think. Therefore, he's the number 1 driver. It's the first change I'm doing. So I said, good, let me think about it. So I went out, walked around the car, didn't know what to do. And he had his office there, he was in there with Gozzi, came back in and said, if you don't fulfill your contract, which is very simple, I want you to let me go. Because if you don't want me as a number 1 driver, I don't accept expect a number 2 driver position, let's finish the contract. Simple. You take somebody else up and I go. This was all in November. And then he said, no. Where do you want to go? McLaren. McLaren was the competitive car at the time. Why do you think I could go to McLaren? I just spoke to Ron Dennis, out of the office. So I left again, and now the Italian fear came up. Called me back in, said, you're right, mistake, number 2 driver, forget it, but nevertheless, Reutemann is in charge now of the whole development of the car, and he's in charge of all this, but I cannot ask you to be a number 2. And what do you want me now to do? You can go over to Fiorano now, today, and test brake pads. Brake pad test is done by mechanics. All they need to do, run around the circuit with the Formula 1 car and run in the brake pads. So I said, are you serious that I should do the brake pad? Yes. Sir, I'm going to go to McLaren because this is again against my contract. So I said, where's the next test? The next test is in 3 days in Paul Ricard, the most important test before the end of the season. And Reutemann is going to do this test. Reutemann is going to do this test alone. Yes. Go to McLaren, against my contract. So then they didn't know what to do. Then he said, fine, you're right, you can test the last day. So he's in charge, 3 days, you can test the 4th day. Okay, fine. Went down first day, watched Reutemann driving my car all day long. Watched all the mechanics, what they do, what they write down, tire pressures. And then the last day came, mechanics were tired, everybody thought now Mr. Reutemann, the hero, is gone. Why the hell we have to drive now with Lauda, because all the mood was bad, because Ferrari doesn't want him anyway. You could feel all that. So I said, guys, I'm running now, so get ready. They get ready, drive 3 laps, car understeers like hell, change the front wing, said give me the front springs this way, change the front roll bar, thank you very much. Took an hour, they changed everything, went out again, test the car, suited right, give me a new set of tires. Tires on 8/10 quicker than Reutemann in 2 laps. He tested 3 days, I tested 8 laps out of the car. Where you want to go? Home. I have tested enough. You guys want to test, here's the Argentinian guy, test with him. I've proved to myself that I'm quick, 8/10 quicker than this guy. I'm happy. I go home now. Everybody looked. Ferrari called the engineer, said, tell Lauda to come immediately to the factory. Okay, drove up to the factory. Commendatore, what can I do? I want you to be in charge of the test. Thank you. We could have done it all easier. And all these things happened. Then I won again the championship in '77 for him, in front of Reutemann. And then I left. And this was the reason I left.
What about how Enzo Ferrari handled the crash made you ultimately decide to leave? You know, in addition to what you've already touched on.
There was an important thing with the crash that when I decided after 40 days that I want to try the car again, I called them, I said I want to come down to Fiorano to test if I can drive. Problem was that my hand is burned here very badly, and they forgot to put transplant of skin here, so this was very painful. So I wanted to test this with the gloves being covered if I can handle this. All this was completely burned, logically all open and blood. So I wanted to try the balaclava, put the helmet on, which was not easy because of the ear pain I had, and all this needed to be tested. So I came to Fiorano with my trainer. We tried everything. I drove well there. The pain was reasonable. I could fix with some protection, everything. And then I decided after a long day testing, yes, I'm ready to go to Monza, which was 3 days later. I came over to Ferrari, said, yes, sir, I tried everything, everything's fine, I have a race. And then he looked at me and said, not a good idea. I said, why? Because if we lose the championship, you lose the championship, for me. If you come later in the season, everybody will accept or understand why you lost the championship. Because of your accident. If you come too early, you can still fight for the championship with the points. And if you lose, then it's bad for you, for me, for everybody. So I said, what is going on with this guy? He wants to get out of this explanation thing, why we lose the championship. No. Your problem is Reutemann. What do you mean? Because Regazzoni is driving, Reutemann is driving, and me. And my contract says 2 cars. Is this why you want to stop me driving? No, it is because of your own safety and bullshit and forward and backwards. So that's fine. I know that Reutemann is here because you had to sign him up because you did not expect me to whenever I come out of the hospital. So I understand that. I agree with this, that we have 3 cars now. But if I'm back and I'm racing competitive, Reutemann has to go again because we have 2 cars running. Okay, yes, I understand. But do you really want to go to Monza? Yes. Let Reutemann drive, I don't care. But from then on, it's only Regazzoni and me. Okay. So then he agreed on all this. But what happened then is when I came on Thursday to Monza for preparing for practice on Friday, suddenly the organizers said, you have to do a medical check. Because I had a medical check done in Austria, I had all the papers to say I'm fit. Mm-hmm. But they say you have to do another one. So I said, why the hell I have to do another one? Here is my paperwork. No, we're in Italy, you have to do another one. And they bothered me all Thursday afternoon with some stupid tests, breaking really my whole confidence, getting ready for the race by doing all these tests. In the end, they had to let me through because I was fit. And then I thought maybe Ferrari started all this, telling the organizers, check Lauda carefully, because he was still sure to protect me, is to let me stay home from Monza.
Do you think that's what he did?
I think this could have been part of, not himself, but the Ferrari team maybe could have convinced him. Mm-hmm. But the problem for me was that this Thursday was for me a disaster because I wanted to concentrate on my racing starting tomorrow and not being medically checked, done. So then on Friday morning I turned up there, pressure like you do not believe, the newspapers, the journalists, the press, can Lauda drive, can he not drive, medical checks, all these things was building up to in the morning like you do not believe. Then I got out of the pits, tried to get out of the pits and I could not drive. I put it in second gear, and suddenly I had a block in my whole brain. Being frightened, I saw myself driving through a guardrail, which never happened, and I was completely blocked and I could not drive this car. So I slowly went back into the pits, being completely confused what happened now, because in Fiorano I could drive, and here I cannot. Mm-hmm. So I had to get out of the car. I told the team, unfortunately, I don't feel well. I have to go back to the hotel. Went back to the hotel and tried to explain to myself what happened now. Why is suddenly everything coming back from the accident, which never bothered me before? Then I said, maybe after a sleepless night, let's do it different. Go there tomorrow, Saturday, final day for the Italian Grand Prix, and drive there on your own. Don't worry about the competition, the race, the qualifying, speed and whatever. Get in the car and try to get confident back that I'm handling the car. Got in the car, didn't look at any other time, said to my mechanics, don't show me any lap times, I only want to drive. And this was the right decision. So the pressure was gone, I could get in, concentrate on driving, got quicker and quicker and quicker, fear was not there at all, and when practice was over, I was quickest Ferrari. So Reutemann and Regazzoni were behind me. So that gave me certainly confident. So I gave myself too much pressure before, being ready too soon, therefore I could not drive on Friday. Mm-hmm. And then from then on, it worked pretty normal.
But it was how Ferrari handled you coming back from the crash that made you decide just enough was enough and ready to move on. The crash obviously nearly took your life. What do you remember from waking up in a German hospital?
I remember in the first hospital, which was right to the circuit, I do not remember anything, but I know that they told me afterwards. The team manager came to look at me. I said to him, my clothes is in the room, my car, rent-a-car key is there, please take care of it. But I can't remember this. So I was thinking still logically what has to be done, and tell my wife that I'm fine. The first thing I remember is that I was put in a helicopter, and I heard the helicopter starting to run, and I woke up, and I saw a doctor next to me with a bottle in his hand in a white cloth. I saw a face. So I said to him, where are we going and how long is the flight? So he said, 45 minutes, we go to Mannheim. Then I was gone again. Then the next thing I remember was in the hospital, in the next one, where I heard a lot of voices which I could not identify. And there was one guy saying, I am Grajales, the doctor of Emerson Fittipaldi. He was a German guy who Fittipaldi had around for the races for him. And he, by accident, was on duty in that hospital where they took me to. Because this was the hospital for racing accidents of the Nürburgring. So finally I said, there's one voice I know, and it's always better to speak to somebody you know than to other people.
Sure.
So it gave me a little bit of confidence. And then I remember the doctors talking about if we give him oxygen, he will die. So I said, oh, interesting remark. I will die. And then only so fragments of discussions came to me. This I remember very well. But to make a long story short, after 8 years or 10 years, I met the doctor in Hockenheim, and I asked him what happened to me really in this terrible accident. He said, you know, the reason you're alive is that you stayed conscious for a while and did not give up to go in a sleeping mode, which a lot of people do. If the pressure gets too hard, they simply get unconscious. And then you cannot proactive talk to your patient anymore. And the strength you had is that we could talk to you. So even, I said it was not very clever to say in front of me, if we give him oxygen, he's going to die. Right. This certainly does not help me. Yes, maybe this was a mistake. But the most important was that we could communicate with you. Because if we communicate with a patient who is dying, we have him on board with his brain to react accordingly what we tell him to do. And this was one of the secrets, I think, that I try to stay awake, to follow their instructions, because for me it was clear. The only way is for me to stay alive if the doctors can keep me alive, because I can't do anything. I'm there anyway half dead. And this was really the part of my recovery, that I was always there to fully support what they asked me to do.
How well do you recall the priest giving you your last rites?
The nurse said to me, because I could not see anything, I could only hear, because everything was burned. And talking was difficult because I had a tube down my thing. I could only nod, yes or no, nothing more I could do. And when she said to me, do you want a priest? So I said, why does she want me to ask her about a priest? And then she said, to give you the last rite. Then I said, oui. This I never heard in my life before, that I need somebody to give me the last rite. But then I said, if there's anybody up there, why not? Let's use him. I mean, such terrible conditions. So I nodded, said, yes, maybe it helps. Because I want to stay alive anyway. And then nothing happened. because the priest thought I'm unconscious. He was only standing next to me. Maybe said to her, we'll be at the army or whatever, gave me the last rites and left again. But I expected him to talk to me, like the nurse talked to me. He saw that the nurse talked to me, and I nodded. But he didn't. He only touched me on my shoulder, gave me the last rite and left. And then I said, this can't be true. So I really got upset and said to myself, now I'm going to stay alive. Because this was another thing which annoyed me in a positive way, to really keep my brain on working, to stay there and follow the doctor's instructions.
The doctors were forced to vacuum your lungs. What did that entail?
This was terrible because they asked me, this is the way the oxygen does not work. They explained it after again. But if you put a tube in your lung and we try to vacuum all these burns and carbon pieces, plastic pieces you had in your lungs, this can certainly help you to recover. It was a method which was never used before. A lot of times was just invented. And then sure, I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do. And then they said one important thing, as more often you do it, as quicker you recover. So they put a tube all the way down into your lung, and then they vacuum all these pieces, bits and pieces out of your lungs. So what happens, the lung completely collapses, you cannot breathe, and the time they do it, you have no air, and you panic, basically. And it was really painful and horrible. But again, they said, as more often you do it, do it. So then, I don't know, after half an hour, I said, let's do it again. The doctor said, no, it's too early. Wait, because otherwise you're gonna die because of that. So, but I got the message and did it as much as I could to get quickly these things out of my lungs. And then after 3 days, more or less, I was sure that I can stay alive.
What was the lasting physical damage from the crash?
When the lung was fixed, after 5-6 days, I had to go over to the other hospital to do all this transplant. So all this part here is transplanted. The top end of my head was transplanted, and this part here was transplanted. They took the skin from my leg and put it on, so which is a normal operation. But the problem was, when I woke up again after this operation, I found myself lying in a bed with the lights on the top, my hands tied down to the bed, and the nurse sitting next to me reading a book. So I said, when I woke up, I said, what are you doing here? I watch you that you don't touch your face. Because if you touch your face, you're going to destroy the operation. You're not allowed to touch your skin. Therefore, we tie down your hands that by accident, when you sleep or whatever, you don't touch anything. I have to watch all that. Then I got a little better. Then I could stand up. And then there was another nurse, which was more friendly than the other one, and said to me, do you want to look in a mirror?
And you had not seen yourself up until that point?
No, operation, no way. So she got me out of bed, dragged me into this bathroom, and put me in front of a mirror because she had to guide me there because my eyes was closed. And then she says, try to open your eye. So I took this one because it was less than, so I opened my eye a little bit myself and looked in this mirror. I could not believe it. My head started, my shoulders up, and head was this size. And I could never see anything like this. Then I said to her, will this change? She said, sure it will change. It is heat and water. You understand? You burn yourself. It is all heat and water, because if you have a bad accident like you, this is the way you look. So I said, how long does it take that this stupid water gets out of my face? Oh, this I cannot tell you. And then I was looking again, and I said, if I look through the rest of my life like this, what are you going to do? I talked to myself. Then I said, nothing I can do. This is the way it is. So I had an accident, I lost my ear, I look like this, thank God I'm alive. I accept it. This is the way it is. So, out of this back home, because then I had enough of the hospital. I signed a letter that I can leave. So I was flown home I had a plane there at the time. I was flown home to...
And if I could jump in just momentarily, why at that time did you decide against cosmetic surgery and only get...
be careful, at that time there was nothing to do with cosmetic surgery, because I just had all the transplants on. I'll tell you one thing in a minute.
Okay.
Because of this accident. There was nothing to do about that at the time. So then I accepted the way I look. Then I released myself from the hospital. I had to come back every 2 days to check my burns. And I went home. In Salzburg, my wife was there. I have a farmer sitting right next to me, which I know very well. He's a real farmer. And I said to Marlene, bring the farmer up. She says, why do you want the farmer up? No, I want to speak to him. Say hello. My neighbor, I like him. And then I put myself in my living room in a position where I could see him coming in. So the farmer has his funny hat on, his Virginia cigar on the top, a real man from the mountains of Salzburg. And he came into the room, he looked at me, had a shock like you do not believe, and looked the other direction. I said, shit, I really look bad. I shock people the way I look. And then again, I said to myself, this is the way it is. I can never fix this, because sure you can do cosmetic surgery, but what do you change? You cannot put a new face on me. So I have this effect now to people that I shock them. But I have to say, at that time my head was still stubble. Right. So it got much better, certainly, as you hopefully can see.
Right, right.
So, but that again, that a guy from the mountains is shocked. If I go in town where other people live, who make a lot of plastic surgeries, they all want to look good and all this, I said, shit, if I go to Vienna, it will be worse for these people. But if this guy is so shocked, I really look bad. And then I took a decision, this is the way it is. So, fine. I can live with it, because I put myself through all this, and for me, it does not bother me at all. And then I had the problem that when I spoke to people, they always looked like this. I had the cap on, because the cap is my protection for stupid people looking at me stupidly. They always want to see what the hell's going on under the cap. And to protect myself, feeling more comfortable, I put a cap on. Mm-hmm. And even with a cap on, the people always talk to me like this. So what would you do if I talk to you like this? I said, can you look in my eyes? And then you will have a shock, like you do, you look in my eyes.
Is still today?
No.
Okay.
No, but in these early days.
I got it.
Yeah,
okay.
And then, because the accident, I was famous because of the accident, I was burned myself to death, and everybody was highly interested. How the hell does he look like? And this went on for quite a while. The people always tried to understand what is under the cap. Yeah, but I didn't want to show them anyway.
Right.
So there have been incidents where I was hurt by people don't understand to meet somebody who looks ugly, burned, or whatever, treat him normal. They've always been treated, they treated me so bad that the only interest they had in me was to look what happens under the cap. And that really annoyed me. So when people came and I felt this, look in my eyes, you want to talk to me, for sake. Yeah? And by the way, I have an accident as an excuse to look ugly. Some people don't have this excuse. They are ugly. Yeah? I tell you, and that is the way I recovered my problems for myself. Sometimes being very nasty to other people. If they're nasty to me, I gave them this answer.
What was the nastiest comment or question or headline that you remember from back then?
I know one very well. When I did my first press conference to announce my comeback in Monza, I had a huge press conference in Salzburg. I explained why I'm coming back, all the normal sporting questions. And then one guy said there, what does your wife say today how you look? I said, what do you mean? Now, is she not upset the way you look now? Can you imagine she wakes up every day in the morning next to you and you look like this? Are you serious with this question, or is this a joke? No, I'm serious. So I left the conference, because this was hard. And then the guy walked after me after the press conference again and asked the same questions.
Really?
Yeah. I said, listen, if you don't stop now being so unpolite and rude, I'm going to kick you in your post like you do not believe. And then he left. But this was another funny experience, how people treat you.
How did that make you feel?
No, I said, how can this be? I mean, what are these people thinking? I mean, for me, I was a sensitive, burned, weak individual at the time, because you need a lot of strength to overcome all this, which I certainly got back. So as soon as I had all this bad experience, I had to protect myself. And then I was very, very straightforward. Look in my eyes, and my excuse is my accident. Look at yourself, how you look. And then the whole thing stopped.
How soon after your recovery did you begin thinking about whether or not you wanted to come back?
After I was fit, my trainer was with me. I said, can I race or not? He said, yes, if we train hard, I think in 2 weeks we can get you ready. And then I had to take a decision, do I want to take the same chances again to kill myself or not? And as racing, driving was my job at the time, I always knew how dangerous it was right from the beginning. I was not surprised to have an accident, but I was happily surprised, it sounds funny now, that I'm still alive.
Really?
So, yeah, because I knew that what I was putting myself into. I saw every year 1 or 2 guys getting killed. So this was my world. So my accident, I was lucky, I was alive. So therefore I didn't have much problem to decide to go back, to take the same chances before, because I knew how dangerous it was. It was not that I was put something into which I didn't know what it was all about. So from this point of view, I said, if Dunkel tells me I'm fit, I can drive again, I really want to see how long it will take me to come back.
I think you were listening to Bob Marley when you made the decision?
Bob Marley, yeah, the music.
Why?
Because I like music. And Bob Marley at the time was my favorite singer, and I liked the music, so I was singing to the music, and then I decided, do you want to come back or not? So I just motivated myself into a good mood to take the decision, and then I took the decision and off I went.
And after the crash, you told yourself you'd stop making stupid mistakes. Like what?
It's very simple. If you've been through this and you know how close you have been to die, then I said, now I have to take some consequences out of this. And this applies for everybody, even today. How many people hurt themselves or die because they are not careful enough, or stupid, or make mistakes because they drink and drive a car or whatever? So I said to myself, after this experience, I will never ever do anything in my life where out of stupidity of myself or not thinking, I risk something. So I'll give you a simple example. How many people broke their arm in the shower when they showered and slipped and fell down? A lot of people can do that. So I said, I will never slip in the shower, because when I go in, I do one step, check the other step, and don't take stupid chances to hurt myself or even kill myself. And even driving road cars or flying, all these kind of things. I know that I have to be responsible, that I will do nothing wrong to hurt anybody or myself.
So why 6 weeks after the crash, so soon, do you make the decision to come back?
Because I thought, as quick I go back, as easy it must be. Because if we stay home, and thank God I was ready after 40 days, because it could have been all this healing process takes much longer. But thank God after 40 days I was able to drive. So then the first thing was, let's get in and see how much is left now of fear, how can I overcome this? And I thought at the time, which is right, if you would have an accident, maybe it was not your fault today in a road car, the best thing for you is to overcome this risk you took or you had to yourself, get in and drive as quick as you can again. Because if you get back onto the steering wheel being in charge, then you can overcome your fear. If you sit back and you cannot, and you worry forward and backward, was it my fault? what can I do different? You need to get back into your old business to overcome all this. And therefore the timing, as short it is, as better it is.
I believe it was 2006, you went back to the site of the crash with the driver that rescued you, as well as F1 chairman Bernie Ecclestone, and a few bottles of beer. What transpired?
The point was, we had this stupid friend, Karl-Heinz, who was Bernie's caterer at the time, who said, let's go up to the Nürburgring place and we drink some schnapps there. So I said, why not? It was, I don't know, 20 years after, 30 years after, can't remember the date. So we all drove there, stopped. The old Nürburgring was not used for racing. We raced at the new Nürburgring. So there was nothing there except the woods and the trees and the grass. And then Karl-Heinz, this idiot, dropped a pig ear. A pig ear. He cut off at home, he comes from the countries, and put this pig ear into the grass. And suddenly 3 bicycle guys came by, German guys bicycling on the Nürburgring, and they saw me. Niki Lauda, what are you doing here? And I said, Karl-Heinz said, he's looking for his ear. And they said, what? And they really got upset with him. Yeah, because it was the joke they didn't understand. We had a couple of schnapps, we understood what he meant. And they really got upset. And then Karl-Heinz said to me, no, show them that you find your ear. Where do you want me to look? Go a little further, go. And there was this pig's ear he put there. So I found my ear. Thank God that we took pictures with this pig ear. So it was fun.
What did the cyclists say?
They shook their hands and they left. Their heads and they left.
Yeah, I understand you don't remember the crash, but there was one time where you were smoking really strong marijuana in Ibiza.
This
where
was 100 years
you
ago.
Had a recollection?
Yeah, my cousin came and said, smoke this. I never did before, to be honest. And Marlene took a puff, I did. And then I felt sick, like you do not believe. So I had to go to the bathroom. And before putting everything out, I was standing in front of my bathtub, whatever you call it. And I saw the hole where the water goes through. And I suddenly got locked up in this hole and got back the same impression I had. At one stage at the hospital, I saw myself flying backwards into a big hole, very slowly, very nice flight. And I said, hey, what's happening now? I'm gonna die. Because it was such a nice feeling to get this impression going down. And I immediately switched on my brain and said, no, you're dying, listen to the doctors. And this came back only once in my life, like you just explained. When I looked at this hole, just trying to get rid of this stupid smoking thing, this came back once. And it was funny. It never came back before, only came back once and never again.
The other significant crash that you had in your life was that of a plane in the airline that you ran. How did you find out one of your planes crashed and 213 passengers and 10 crew members were killed?
Lauda Air had a 6-month-old 767, brand new airplane. The flight was coming from Bangkok to Vienna, and I was called at 10 minutes to 10 in the evening from the news television channel, and the lady said to me, we had just had a report that one of your planes crashed just outside of Bangkok. So I said to her, let me check. Called the company and said, get in touch with the plane. And they said, we can't. So, and then slowly the messages came, and it was right that this 767 came down. And then I went to the office in the evening, and we all got together, and we thought, I've never been confronted with a terrible accident like this. What we're going to do? Let's make a plan. So took a plane next day, came down there. The authorities waited for me, took me in a helicopter to this place which was on the border to Burma, basically, in some mountain places where the plane was crashed. So we landed, took a car, drove up, and suddenly I saw some white stuff. I looked out of the window, like napkins and other things on the ground. So this is my napkins. And as closer you got, as bigger the pieces of the airplane were, because the airplane came all the way down, was spread over 5 kilometers. And then I saw this whole terrible mess. And the impression was, first of all, my airplane, what happened. And then I saw the local people there taking rings and jewels from bodies lying around in the jungle, and luggage and pieces all over the place. I saw handbags of cabin attendants, which I knew. So it was terrible. This was a scene which I will never ever forget, because for me this was the worst ever. There was my accident, nothing against what I saw down there. But I had a Boeing representative with me, which I took right from Vienna, who went there because I asked him in Vienna, have you ever seen a crash? He said, yes, so come with me. And there we looked around. We saw one engine here, the other engine there, and the frame of the airplane and some other places. And then I asked him if he can find out anything here, what he could see. He said, no, it's all a mess. And I saw on one engine the thrust reverse deployed, and on the other one, which was 2 kilometers away, the thrust reverse not deployed. And I said to him, why is this? He said, comes up from 28,000 feet, don't worry about it, this is the way it is. Crashes into the ground, and that's the way it is. So then we went home, and then I was very proactive, telling all the time if there was no new news. Why? Because I was called by relatives to victims every day, about 50, always asking me the same question. Mr. Lauda, why? And I immediately realized what is the most important for these people in all this sadness, losing one of their kids, husbands, wives, whatever, to give them a reason. So therefore, I pushed hard, like, to not believe. I said in the first place, I said, if this is the responsibility of Lauda Air, that this airplane crashed, I have to resign immediately, because I was not able to let an airplane fly safely from A to B. And as soon as I said this, released me completely from making now the biggest effort to find out what went wrong. And I stayed in touch with the authorities, I stayed in touch with Boeing every day to understand what happened. And it was a long, ongoing thing, because when we went to Washington right after the crash, about 3 days later, with a black box and the voice recorder, the flight data recorder was destroyed, unfortunately. It was supposed to hold up to 900 degrees, and the tape inside should be alive, but unfortunately it was destroyed. Today, all these voice recorders and flight data recorders are different to this at this time. So we had no indication from a flight data recorder, because there you would have known immediately what happened. The only thing we had was the voice recorder. The voice recorder worked, and the voice recorder, as I was flying the 767 myself, was the following. They started in Bangkok completely normal, pilots operated normal, and then when the accident happened in 28,000 feet, Mach 0.80, the 767 was climbing, there was a huge rattle in the cockpit. You could hear big noises. The pilots did not speak to each other anymore. And I thought there must have been something wrong so quickly that they could not even talk to each other, because if someone goes on an airplane, the first thing is you talk to your colleague, checklist, what can we do, what is the action we have to do. And they didn't speak a word. You could only hear out of the microphone of the captain that he says, we are upside down, to himself, not to the other guy. And then he said, we're going down, we're going down, we're going down. So, and when I heard this, I said something must have happened so quickly that they couldn't do anything. And then unfortunately, for 8 months, we had to wait before Boeing found out on a test bed where they put the thrust reverse system of the 767, an O-ring fell out of a valve, which pushed the thrust reverse out, which can never do this when you're flying, instead of holding it in. So 8 months later, then finally the cause was out. It was a design failure on the thrust reverse system, which brought these 223 people down.
But when the investigators initially came out with findings in advance of that, alleging it was your fault, you were immediately unconvinced.
No, because sure it could have been our fault too, but I pushed hard, as I said from day one. I don't care whose fault it is.
Right.
I want to know. I had to go to a funeral in Bangkok where the last 23 victims could not be identified, put in one big graveyard. And this again, for me, was one of the worst situations, because there was an elderly woman with a little kid, about 10 years old, who smashed something into this graveyard. And when I heard this and saw this, I went to this lady and said, what is the boy doing here? He said he collected all these mussels, what do you call it, the mussels from the sand on the beach.
Like seashells?
Seashells.
Okay.
He collected all the seashells on the holiday because he stayed with me longer in Bangkok, and both of his parents died. And he put them down there. So you can imagine, I mean, when you have all this close to you, what happens to people in this moment, I was extremely affected by this. Then we had a speech there, and I had to explain, and then did everything, and then we had 3 different religions to make all this happen. And down there, I got a phone call then from Boeing that I should come up straight from Bangkok to Seattle. They know now the cause, and I should fly the simulator. So I flew straight up there, fly the simulator. As I was the pilot at the time, I could do all that. And when the fault happened, the airplane turned around and just crashed. So then I went to Boeing and said, fine, what are you going to do now? And they said, yes, Mr. Lauda, it's not that easy. We have to look now with all the lawyers what explanation we're going to do. We know we have to do that. And I said, how long does it take? It takes a couple of months. Why a couple of months? Do we know the cause or not? Yeah, we know the cause. But we have to make sure that there's no risk in getting sued and this and that. We have to find the right wording. So that I cannot wait 3 months. I don't want to. So what we can do is following. Take a 767 up with 2 pilots, exploit the thrust reverse in 28,000 feet, and if nothing happens, then I want to be with them on the next flight and look at it myself. You can't do that because your plane crashed. Yeah, yes. But then make a release now. Because why do I have to have all the responsibility since 8 months on my back for this airplane crash? And it was a design problem, not my problem. So please do it. They released on the same day the cause of the crash, and then explained to everybody, because I said, for me, the biggest problem are the victims. These people need an answer, and the answer has to be understood why they all got killed. And it's your responsibility to tell these people. And then in the end, it took, unfortunately, 8 months, then we gave everybody the explanation why this accident happened. So all the time delays of airplane crashes is the worst for the victims. If they do not get an answer why I've lost my wife, friends, or kids.
What got you into the aviation business was when you retired from racing, and it was 1979. How did you know, and what did you say in conversation to your then team head, Bernie Ecclestone, that led to him tearing up your contract for the next year?
Well, it was very simple. Bernie is a hard cookie, there's no question. He knows his business. I was driving for him, and I negotiated a new contract with him, where I asked him for $2 million, which was a lot of money at the time. Bernie said, there's no way I'm ever going to pay you this amount of money. You get 500,000. 500,000, I won't drive for you. Doesn't matter, this is the way it is. So he went to all the other teams and said, if Lauda turns up and wants 2 million, just tell him there's no 2 million. Right. So I went to the other teams and said, 500,000, because Bernie had a good network of people. But Bernie needed sponsorship on the car. Parmalat was the Italian sponsor, which was sponsoring my cap for 25 years. And we sat down with the chairman, or with the CEO there, and Bernie wanted to sign up the car sponsorship, and Mr. Tanzi asked him, is Niki driving? He said, sure, Niki's driving. Yes, he is. He said, I'm not driving. Why? Because I have no contract. He offers me 500,000, I want 2 million, doesn't drive. I don't drive. So then Tanzi said, then I'm going to not sign the sponsorship for the car. And he left us. Then I was sitting there with Bernie. He said to me, are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. Signed by 2 million, and then I expected him to explode. Then he said, no. Honestly, I have respect. Did a good job. To drag me down here, that he did not sign with me because I didn't sign with you. Clever move. That was it. I mean, he expected it, and that was it. But then he was lucky, because then I went to Montreal for the race, and even when I signed for this 2 million contract, I did not really feel a relief or happiness. It was a normal day for me. Then I went to Montreal, new car, new engine for Bernie, looked out of the window, misty day, terrible day, didn't feel well, got in the car, and suddenly the curtain came down. I don't want to drive anymore. Surprised me like you do not believe. No real sign of it, except that I was miserable, and I'm sometimes miserable. And then I said, you can't do that. You just signed the 2 million contract. Just keep on going, keep on going. So I did another 3 laps, and I realized, no, don't want to. I do not want anymore. Got out of the car. Bernie, I need to talk to you. I'm retiring. What? I'm retiring. Are you sure? This is an emotional decision. Think about it twice. Don't make a stupid decision now. I give you time now, don't practice in the afternoon. Think about it carefully, don't make a mistake. Which I thought is very nice of Bernie. Then I thought again about it. No, Bernie, you cannot change my mind, I'm retiring. Then he said, I saved 2 million. And then I retired for good, the first time.
And then the second time after you later came back, what about you starting to regularly think about the dangers of the sport made you realize it's time to go again?
It was not the danger of the sport, because I have to say, when I came back in '82 with a McLaren, it had a carbon fiber monocoque, the first time, carbon fiber. Strong as hell, not like aluminium as before. So the cars got much better in these days. And the danger really was not anymore as bad as beforehand. And then the second retirement was a real retirement, not because of danger. It was simply, I knew that all my life I cannot race. I have to stop sooner or later anyway. And when I stopped the second time, I was sure it was the right decision.
Yet Bernie, who was thrilled years earlier to save $2 million on you, made you a $6 million offer and you still turned it down.
Yeah, I turned it down because when I came back, I went to McLaren. Yeah, because Ron Dennis was the right man to call me at the right time, coming out of retirement for 2 years. And then I started over again, which again I wanted to prove to myself, can I race after 2-year retirement? Because nobody has done this before, and I have to say it turned out okay. I won another championship.
I spent 2 days in Monaco with Nico Rosberg shortly following his retirement from Formula One. Obviously wins the 2016 World Championship, is a Mercedes Petronas driver, and then abruptly, unexpectedly retires. How fair do you think your criticism was of him?
I think it was, from my point of view, completely normal, because I'm in charge with Toto Wolff about our whole team. And if we get hit by our brand new world champion in November, that he's going to retire, it put us in a very difficult situation. Because we need the strongest pair of drivers to continue to win, and he left us just in the last moment. Even I respect his decision, the timing for us was really bad. And therefore I criticized him from the team point of view, that if we do not find a quick replacement who is at least as good as he was, we're going to be in troubles. And I have to say, my criticism is right. He called me a couple of times and said, look, this is my view, being in charge of the team. As a racing driver, I understand. I retired once with Bernie in the same way. Yeah? And then he had no driver. So I did bad things to him too. So if he would have criticized me, I had to respect it.
Right, because Nico made some comment that what you said to him privately was different than what you were saying publicly.
No, I said to him privately, I understand your decision. Yeah, which I have to. I have no choice anyway. But the situation we are in, if I look from the other side, where I'm responsible for 1,200 people, it's our decision.
How do you feel about him today?
I'm quite fine with him. I'm fine with him because I tell you, we have reacted very well, I have to say, from the team point of view, to get Bottas, because Bottas is doing a very good job. Yeah, a similar job than Nico does. Lewis and Valtteri is pushing each other hard. So from the team performance point of view, we could replace, even in the last moment, Nico with Bottas properly.
To what extent did anybody at all think there was even a remote possibility that he would retire?
There was no sign whatsoever. I think he retired really because the pressure of Lewis was too hard for him to cope with in the future. Because Lewis is a tough cookie to drive for. And then he won the race with all these tricks, Lewis holding back and the others coming. And it was tough for him the whole year because Lewis was the world champion to get beaten. It was a hard work.
Do you think he's pleased with his decision now?
Yes, he looks very happy, pleased. He makes no sign of any regret. He seems okay.
If you had to guess, what do you think the likelihood is he ever comes back?
Never, never.
Really?
He continues like absolutely never.
Why?
Because he's so into his family, he seems to be so happy getting now the second kid. He's a different person. He took it all up because he wants to prove to himself that he can be a world champion, like his father. And I think as soon as he achieved it, he has no more motivation to continue.
How did you handle the competition between Nico and Lewis Hamilton?
It was very difficult because they certainly, in the beginning everything was fine, but it's more competitive. They both got against each other because the last 3 years we had a Mercedes car which was quicker than any other car, and we only raced each other. Mm-hmm. The competition was only between Nico and Lewis, who's going to be world champion.
And they were lifelong friends before
They were
this.
before, but as harder the competition gets, as more nasty they got to each other, and they had no more relationship, I would say, the whole of last year, in 16. And this for us was difficult sometimes, because they worked so hard against each other, even the engineering groups worked so harsh against each other. So we had in the team a funny situation, which I think we handled very well, even if they crashed each other out in Barcelona and had some terrible damage to the team, not scoring any points. We handled it okay.
How did it affect the team?
We had huge competition between the team, which in the end was sometimes too much. But we put some regulations in. We told them, especially in Barcelona, when they curse each other off, this is unacceptable for Mercedes. You know, we have to win. One of you guys have to win. You cannot have each other off. So we had some rules put in. They understood.
What were the rules?
You are not allowed to. You have to pay penalties if you do it again. Or we're thinking of releasing you of your contract, because we're team players here. We're not. The team cannot destroy each other. This was the thing. And Toto came up with some good rules. And in the end, we had peace again. They fought hard, and the accidents got reduced between themselves.
In what ways were they nasty to each other?
They had no relation, which is always bad. So they were so bad that they didn't even say hello in the morning to each other. I don't expect them to have breakfast together. If they don't like each other, you don't have to sit down and have breakfast. But they had a relationship that was really bad. It affected Lewis mainly and Nico. So it was fine, but not easy.
How did it affect Lewis?
Lewis got so upset about him that they, even on their performance, sometimes they lost because they're playing tricks to each other, and one didn't show the other one what setup he's using, which is bad for the team again, because we both want to go forward, not only one. So they played all the tricks you can do, which I understood. I did myself too, but for the team, it was pretty tiring.
At what point was the relationship the worst, where Lewis actually started to distrust the team because of his competition with Nico?
There have been some mistakes done that we did too. We changed once the mechanics 1 year to the other, from Lewis's car to Rosberg's car and the other way around. We did not tell the drivers, especially Lewis, beforehand we're going to do that. They were upset about it because they didn't like each other, so suddenly they didn't like us. The logic change was to exchange the mechanics, because we need to change them around anyway, so it was nothing against one of them to help the other. It was a simple system change we did. But we should have communicated to the drivers a little better. But there was a lot of aggravation going on last year. This year, it's all different.
When the relationship was at its worst, I believe you sat down with the two of them in a room together. Take me into that room and what was discussed between the three of you.
No, we had discussions. I have to remember when, in Barcelona, when they hit each other. Toto and myself, first of all, explained to them that you can't do that. Very simple. And then the question was, whose fault was it? Because Nico was in the lead, Lewis tried to pass him. Lewis went to the inside, Rosberg blocked him on the inside, then they crashed, and both cars were out. And this was in the first lap. So not very clever. And then the big discussion was, whose fault was it? And for me it was clear that Lewis was too aggressive, going to the right, hit the grass, couldn't stop his car, and then hit him off. Even Rosberg moved. And I said right away, straightforward, what is my opinion? And I said, if I have to choose between the two, it's more Lewis's fault than Nico's fault. And Lewis did not appreciate that, because he was in a different opinion. And then
what did he say?
He said, why do you criticize me? I said, excuse me, I cannot accept that you guys crash, and then we have nothing, and nobody's fault it is. For me, there has to be somebody's fault. And then Lewis really got upset, and then Nico said, yes, you win, it's your part too, you moved to the inside, why did you not leave room enough for him? He said, why should I? I want to win the race. So, and then I asked Lewis to come down to Ibiza to speak to me personally, which he certainly did. And then I said to Lewis, that red light flashing on the back of the cars today means that you do not have full power, because the battery pack is not putting electricity in the engine. When that light flashes, you know you have 150 horsepower less. Therefore, we have this light. installed, older cars. And I said to Lewis, when you followed him, did you see the red light flashing? Sure I did. Why did you go on the inside? You know he has 150 horsepower less. Why didn't you pass him easy on the outside? Yes and no and yes and no. But the good thing with me, I think, is that apart from the engineers and the team, I can speak the driver's language. So if I speak to him, I ask him these questions, maybe I'm wrong, but at least we speak the same language and we have respect to each other.
Before you signed Lewis Hamilton, I believe you went around the paddock, asked people for their feedback on him. What sort of comments did people make?
As I did not know him, I asked him, is he an easy guy to get on or is it difficult? Because I had to find a way to talk to him. And some people said he's difficult, some people said he's easy. But then in Singapore, I had to meet him, I wanted to meet him. And I went up to the paddock, said, I want to talk to you. And he said right away, yes. And he said, yes, come up to my room. Hotel so-and-so at 2 in the morning because practice was so late. So I said, I've never been up at 2 in the morning at somebody else's hotel room. But nevertheless, I turned up there. And Lewis did not know me, I did not know him, apart from who we were.
Right.
And I have to say straightforward, same language. He was completely open, transparent, asked me the right questions. For example, he asked me one question, why the hell should I leave McLaren and come to you if you are now 5th in the Constructor Championship? The McLaren is a much more competitive car.
What did you say?
I was for 10 seconds speechless. I said, what should I tell him now? He is right. And I said, but what would happen if you would win a world championship in a Mercedes? Because you can then prove to the whole world that you've been the first world champion in a Mercedes. Then I thought, this was half of my victory to make him think in that direction. And then I got him really on the competitive edge to say, join us. And I tell you, I will do everything I can do to give you a competitive car. This I can assure you. With all my efforts, the whole team, we will support you like you do not believe. And years later, or 1 year later, I met him again and said, I was right, no? What do you mean? I said, I'm going to give you a competitive car. Because the last 3 years, or the last 4 years, he had the most competitive car he could get. And in McLaren, it went the other direction. So I have a good relation with him. I know him, I like him. We speak the same language. We have respect of each other. Good.
What do you respect about him?
He's the quickest guy. This is, for me, most talented guy around today. He's easy to handle, in a way, for me at least. Even he's completely different to all the other guys. He enjoys life in a different way than anybody else. He travels around between the races. He tweets from everywhere. He comes back, he's there, he's fit. You need to give him this freedom that makes him strong. Some other guys do it completely different. They train every day, they concentrate. But Lewis is Lewis. I like him, he performs fantastic.
Why do you think Lewis and Valtteri get along better than Lewis and Nico?
So there's no friction at all. They like each other. They have breakfast with each other. They speak to each other. There's nothing wrong at all between the two from the baseline point of view. Therefore, it's much easier. And Bottas is as competitive as Lewis is. He out-qualifies him sometimes. He wins races. So for Lewis, he's a big threat. Nevertheless, the personal relationship is good.
Why do you think that is, though?
Different people, they respect each other. I don't think they like each other or they need to be friends. They need to respect each other in a fair way. And in the end, Nico and Lewis was the other way around. And therefore, we had a very good start with Valtteri now, being with Lewis in a different positive relationship.
Right. I mean, what do you think accounts for the difference in
The
respect
personalities.
versus...
Personalities.
Okay.
He's a Finnish guy, Valtteri doesn't talk much, funny guy, strong guy, good personality, strong character. They fit.
What do you think of Valtteri Bottas?
He's outstanding for me, the performance he did put in, because everybody said in the beginning, we want to see if he's as quick as Nico is. I tell you, he is. He's getting more and more competitive. Every race he gets more experience with the team because it takes a while to get used to all this. He's doing a perfect job for us.
What can you tell us about the team order?
In Budapest, we gave Bottas the position back, which he gave Lewis beforehand. We promised him, or I didn't, but Toto did, that we're gonna change back, and Lewis lost 3 points because of that in the championship. And I'm thinking different, because I won one championship by half a point, and I lost another one by 1 point. So I know very carefully you have to watch the situation of these 3 points. In the end of the year, you can lose them. So I think we have to see what Ferrari is doing in the future. If they continue to support Vettel, that Kimi is always following him, I don't know what we have to do. We have to wait. It depends on race by race how we're going to win the drivers and the constructor championship.
If Ferrari does continue to proceed in that fashion, what do you think you have to do?
I think we have to apply team orders. We have to. But I think that Bottas will understand.
Really?
Yeah, because he's so many points behind Lewis that if you have the choice who can win against Vettel, it's only Lewis now because of the points difference. In theory, he can, but the theory is wrong. Everybody progresses with points. So I think if the right moment we explain it to him that the chances of Lewis are much better than yours, I think he will accept that.
How difficult do you think it will be for him to accept?
It is not so difficult than anybody thinks, because I've been in a similar situation in the past. When you have no chance to win the championship in an easy way, you have to give the full support to the other guy. The other guy has more points right from the beginning. Why? Because he was quicker and better. If he would have had more points, Valtteri would have been the other way around. This is, I think, easy to explain.
One of the very few people you liked, a smaller number of people you respected, and the only person you envied, the legend James Hunt. Explain that, if you don't mind.
Hunt I knew from Formula 3 days. We were going up the same development, more or less, trying to be a Formula 1 driver. So we liked each other because we were doing it together. Then I got my first chance in Ferrari, which I blew him off in a way because he was suffering of getting a proper Formula 1 car. Nevertheless, we stayed in a very good relationship. Our relationship only turned down a bit when I had my accident. Monza onwards, I came back, and he was really competitive because he had a fantastic, quick McLaren. My Ferrari was already suffering from performance, and he drove on a level outstanding. And when this competition gets that bad, then you don't talk to each other anymore because you want to win races. So we only had a little downturn when he really beat me in my communication level. But when he won the championship by half a point in front of me, I said to him, I'm more happy that you are the world champion than any of the other guys. So, and that really shows how good our relationship has been.
What did you envy about him?
He was a fantastic personality. He was funny. He was a man which you never forget when you know him. So James, I mean, there are very few people which I say they are still alive. You know, even they are dead since many years. If you can say this about somebody, he has been outstanding, because the people you forget, you forget. But the people who, especially for my life, and Hunt was a big part of that, I will never forget. He's still alive for me.
What do you remember from sharing a London flat with him during your Formula 3 days?
A lot of, how you call it politely, intercourse. Not with me, I have to say.
What made that time so fun for the two of you?
In the 70s, the time were different. I don't know how old you are, but I guess You have not been in Woodstock, have you?
31. So
So you have not been in Woodstock.
born in
So,
86.
I don't want to sound funny, but in these days it was normal. Some people today don't understand what I'm saying, but in Woodstock times, things were different. It was a different life of living. There was a lot of fun around.
What was the day-to-day like for the two of you back then?
It
living
depends.
together?
We were different. He was driving one way and the other. So the day-to-day we didn't meet much. But in the end of the season we had some fun together. But as more competitive we got, as less it was. So in the last Formula One years it was more difficult with him.
Who got more girls?
He, absolutely. He beat me by far. The Hunt was, he didn't care, I tell you. He was, whatever he could get, he took. He had fun and he enjoyed himself. But in these days, we all had fun, I have to say. It doesn't depend on how many, we don't count them. But it was the typical racing driver's life where the danger was difficult, so we knew we had to live extensively in the time we had available, which anybody would do. We were not different to other people. And it was a good time, I have to say.
Tell about your birthday party in Vienna and then testing the next day in France.
Birthday party in Vienna was funny because I was asked by a guy here I knew to do one. I invited James certainly to come along. He did come along. I went home at 11 because I knew next day I had to fly down to Paul Ricard and test. And James asked me if I can give him a lift. I said, yes, certainly I will do that. And I said, listen, you be at 7 on the airport because I have to leave. I can't be late for this test. Ferrari will fire me. So James said, yes, I'm coming. And 5 to 7, he turned up at the airport with the same lady, which was dressed in all white. I remember this very well, like today. And all her white clothes was a bit dirty all over the place. I don't know what they have done. He had his radio on his shoulder. He always had this radio with him where he played music. And turned up completely pissed on the airport. So James, you are a disaster. Get in the plane, let me take off. And off we go, down to Paul Ricard. James was sleeping. I had to wake him up with the plane. We're here. We dragged him out and off he went to McLaren. I went to Ferrari. I went out in 3 laps, my engine blew up. I said, thank God the engine blew up. Now I have 5-hour rest for an engine change. I could sleep a bit. And then the practice went on. And suddenly there was big panic. A car crashed. Practice was stopped. I saw this McLaren parked on the right side of the long straight. And I said, there's not the tires on, the wheels on, there are no marks. There's nothing. What happened? And I got out of the car and James was sitting in his car sleeping. I said, are you nuts, you idiot? Oh, Niki, I'm so tired, I can't drive anymore. So this was a typical James testing day after a long night in Vienna.
The lunch you had with him much later on at King's Road, what do you remember from that?
I remember very well when James retired, he put himself, unfortunately, in a very terrible personal situation. I think he was drinking too much. He lost all his money because his brother invested his money into Lloyd's company, which went all the way down. The share price went down. So James ended up with no money, completely broke. And I called him because my relationship told me to do that. I said, I'm coming over to England, let's meet. And he turned up in King's Road in a cheap restaurant with a bicycle with no air in the tires. He looked completely finished, long hair, clothes dirty, and sat down. And I said to him, are you nuts or what? What do you mean? Look at yourself. Get up and look in the mirror. I know. James, you're going to kill yourself if you continue like this. I have no money. How much money you need? I don't know, 300 euros, pounds. I'll give you 300 pounds. But do something. Don't drink. I give you the money, I support you all the way, but come back. You have to come back. I had to do this a second time, and then James was better. Then he was clean like you do not believe, worked for the last 3 years of his life for BBC, commenting the races, completely fit like you do not believe. And we all were happy that James was back with us. And then unfortunately, he called his doctor in the middle of the night. I was told that his chest hurts. The doctor said, don't worry, lie down. And the poor guy had a heart attack and got killed. So it was really a sad moment for me personally, because I don't think it was necessary that if the doctor would have been there, I might have saved him.
What was your reaction when you heard he passed away?
Terrible. I was shocked because of what the experience I had with him, bring him back from being broke and finished to an absolute perfect life, not drinking at all, not smoking, nothing, fit like anybody else, and then die. This was terrible.
You got divorced, many years ago, and after that, you made the comment that you'll never marry again. What made you change your mind?
So I got to know Birgit, who is my wife. I knew her for 8 months, or we dated 8 months, and I had a kidney problem. And I asked my son Lucas if he would test to donate me a kidney. He came to Vienna, did a test, and his kidney did not fit. That the doctors say it is good to put in me. And then Birgit said, I'm gonna do the test. And then I said, why would I do the test? Because I would donate your kidney. I said, you will never ever donate me a kidney, because why? I'm ill. I know you now since 8 months. Why? I will never do that. I do the test. She did the test and she did fit. And then she said, I want to donate the kidney. I said, no. And then she gave me for about 3 months always the same impression. I do it for you because I love you, and this is the way it is. She never was frightened or asked questions. Is it dangerous for me? What can happen to me? Never. It was just a pure approach. I will do it. And then after a long time thinking about it, then we went. Then when they pushed her away in the hospital to start the operation, I was praying that please nothing should happen to her. Nothing, because an operation is always an operation. And then I got her kidney, and now this kidney works 100% right. I have the same creatinine level like you have if you're fit, and it is fantastic. So after 4 years, I married her, but because not of the kidney donation, because I knew that she was the right woman to marry. And then we got twins, Max and Mia. So I was really lucky that all these things happened today. And with my Marlene, which I have a very good relation with her, Birgit and Marlene get on very well in Ibiza.
And how does that work? Because I understand the three of you will go out together sometimes.
Yeah, but it is mainly to say, first of all, Birgit, yes, but Marlene has always been, like I explained before, she always wants that the other people are happy. She doesn't give any restrictions to anybody because of her behalf. So there are very few people around the world who say, I want you to be happy, and I put myself happy in another position. And therefore there was no problem at all that she will get on with Birgit, and she did from the first day. And for Easter, for example, we have all the kids together in Marlene's house. Lucas has a kid, Matthias has 2 kids, so we're all together celebrating Easter in a fantastic way, everybody put together.
Why do you need the kidney?
Because I had a kidney failure, not a failure. It goes down suddenly and didn't work well. It could have been damaged out of the accident I had 76 in the beginning, because I had a completely organ stop at my time. And if the kidney does not fully recover, it could have been the cause. It's not fixed. But I needed the kidney transplant.
And that was your second one, right?
Yeah,
The first one.
My brother did before, but that only lasted for 8 years, and this one now for 12 years.
How strange was going to your brother and asking for a kidney?
I didn't actually ask for him. He knew that I had a kidney problem, and he came to me and said, I would do it, because this is an important message maybe to understand. To donate a kidney can save somebody else's life, And it's very simple today in modern medicine to do that. But as people don't think about it, in Austria, you don't need by law a written, I think in America it's the same, you need a proof that if something happens to you, your organs can be taken. In Austria, it's the other way around. If something happens, they can be taken. And I can only say to people, right where you legally need to, that yes, you are available for organs if something happens to you, because it can save and help any other body's lives. And people really don't really get the message. Much more people donate now, or when they have an accident, they can take the kidneys. But it needs to be to make the people aware. If you understand the problem, for you it's no risk if you donate me the kidney, if you are properly treated. But it can save my life.
How close were you to your brother at the time that he
Not
donated
that
the
close,
kidney?
to have to say, because my brother and myself lived different lives completely. But nevertheless, he thought about it and did the same thing as Birgit did.
Did that make it weird at all, the fact that the two of you weren't close?
No, not at all, because he again said to me, yes, I'm going to do this. It took him more time, I would say, than Birgit, but he did exactly the same thing. And I tell you, I would do the same thing if I can to anybody, even to a stranger.
So you mentioned you have two twins, Max and Mia, a boy and girl. You have older children as well. To what extent, looking back, would you have liked to have been around more for your older kids, or around for them in the same way you are?
This is a very theoretic question, because it was not possible. Because the times with Marlene and Lucas and Matthias was my racing, was my job, to make it simple, and I had to be different to be able to fulfill my job, like I explained in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Now I have more time, I have no risk at all, and now I enjoy my little kids, that they grow up with me or I grow up with them, because it keeps me young, I have to say, and it is fantastic what my life is today. But I do not regret the past, because I had no choice in the past. It was different times, and this is the way it was. With Lucas and Matthias, I have a fantastic relationship, so everything in the end worked out very well.
What's it like for you now, having kids later on in life?
Fantastic. I mean, it is unbelievable, because every day there's new experience with them. You grow up, the way they speak their language, the way they understand things. It is every day a new positive surprise.
What do you like most about it?
Like most about it, that I really feel them strongly. I think it's the other way around too. We have this typical father and mother relationship. Birgit freaks out of something they have done, not me. And then they look at me, and if I think if Birgit has done a little bit too much, then I always say. And then the kids laugh again.
So you're kind of the soft one.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% the soft one, because she's a tough cookie with them, and therefore we have this good relationship. I mean, the kids like me very much. Birgit says, if I pick them up for school, which I had to do yesterday, if I have time, I do it. And then she says, you have to take Max to the doctor. Because Max 2 days ago said there's an ear ache. And I asked him yesterday, does your ear ache? He says, no. So, are you fit? Yes. So why the hell do we have to go to the doctor? So then I called Birgit and said, why the hell do we have to go to the doctor? The kid is fit. No. When you are in Spa, I want to go to Venice with them, and for flying, I want to make sure that the ear is fit. You have to go to the doctor. So, okay, where the hell is the doctor? I said, Mia, come, we go all to the doctor, and we go to this, first time I've been, this is a lady doctor, very nice. And in the outside room, where you have to wait, my kid said, is this the doctor where all this playground is? So I said, I have no idea, I've never been there. You've been there with your mom 100 times, but not with me. So then we come in this room, playground, where they can swing forward, balls forward, 6 kids in there, crashing into each other, because they're playing there so hard. So they stop you stop here, The mother went in to see the doctor. I had 6 kids around me, trying to control them, not to hurt themselves, even we are at the doctor. So then I saw the lady doctor. I said, "Are you crazy? These people can..." He said, "I'm here anyway, but I don't need a doctor when they come to the doctor." But anyway, by the way, long story short, Max is fit, he can go. And then the kid said to me, "Now we go and eat ice cream." Sure, we go and eat ice cream. I picked her up from school, now we have ice cream. So we come home. "Where have you been?" Mia says, "Ice cream with Daddy." "You went ice cream?" "I told you there is no ice cream because too much sugar and forward and backwards." Birgit, hello. If you make me responsible, pick the kids up from school, which normally I don't do, I decide then what is good for us. So we go and eat ice cream. If you send me again, I will do the same thing again. But this, I guess, is normal marriage discussion.
We were talking about this a little bit at the start of the interview. You've obviously had fabulous success during your life and career. With that comes great wealth. How do you avoid your wealth dampening your kids' desire?
The wealth, I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you, I keep them completely on the ground. When they travel with me in my plane, which is a private plane, I tell them exactly what is the difference. When they go to Venice, they use a scheduled plane, so they know both sides of it, and they do understand. Kids are very easy to make sure they go in the right direction as long as you tell them. Well, we're flying a private plane because we have one, but we will fly again, or we will no fly if we have no plane. They accept all that, if you give them the right message.
How do you view money?
For me, it's easy to say. If I have money, it's fine. If I don't have money, I can adjust always to the money situation. I have no problem traveling tomorrow with scheduled planes, if this is the case, because I always had my feet on the ground. If I'm able to fly a private plane, I certainly prefer it. Easier, nicer, but I can do without it. I don't have the importance, I want a private plane. Sure, I want a private plane, if I can afford it. In this relationship, I'm always unaffected by all this so-called wealth, because I know if it's here, I use it. If it's not here, I can be as happy as before.
What's an example of you loaning somebody money over the years, and how did that impact the relationship?
I think loaning money to somebody impacts no relationship. It's dangerous even, I think. So, because the first question is, why do you need money? So there can be some reasons why people need money. And if I do understand them, I give it to them. But for me, a loan is always bad. Either give it because you have it and you give it to them and that's it. But the loan things, I had a cousin once who was sick and he asked me for money. I loaned it to him. He said, "I'm going to give it back to you." He never gave it back to me, so I learned my lessons out of this. But I give money if I really think they need the money and I can help them. And I have no problem with them, but not as a loan.
When it comes to investing, I understand from talking to, I guess, your money man, you like taking big risks. Why?
Because I always took risks. I'd never been, let's say, called normal. I tell you one thing. We are living today in a very streamlined world that everybody thinks if we need WhatsApp or Twitter or whatever, what is the President Trump using?
Twitter.
Huh?
Twitter, right.
This is a good example that if the president uses it, then everybody has to use it. And if I understand that these streams are happening, I, funny enough, always think the opposite. Because even in my racing competition, if I understood that one guy is doing one thing and he's not successful, why should I follow him? So I have this learning out of my long experience, even in business decisions or private decisions. If everybody goes one direction, I think immediately the other way. And I tell you, from decisions I have taken the other direction, I would say I was 90% right. It takes a while for the people who all streamline in one direction. There's one guy who's doing it the other way. I'm quicker thinking the other way first than to follow what everybody thinks is right. Because that gets me revved up here, what is right and what is wrong. So whenever these developments in the world get, I first of all think the other way around. And as a lot of people are going in one direction, I'm much quicker going in the other one.
Although you've given away or gotten rid of your awards and trophies over the years, what would you say is your most valuable possession?
Possession means
Item.
Home trophies. I won't give them away. No, I don't have them. I tell you, I have everything up here. I think this is the difference. I'm not living at all in the past. If you would ask me what happened then and then and what did you do here and there, I cannot hang on to things from the past like trophies because I got them once, they are ugly. This is the first reason I give them away. I don't like them. I think I remember maybe 2 or 3 trophies kept because they look nice. You can use them to put the flowers in or something else. But trophies itself, they're most of the time ugly. So therefore, I don't like them. But my real advantage, I think, is that all what I've been through my life gave me a lot of experience in easy decisions, easy life paths, difficult life paths, plane crash, accident. So I have a lot of experience. So when future problems come up, and in the first approach, I think this is easy to handle. I nearly killed myself and came out of death and recovered. So I have no idea. Let's say I break my leg 6 times now. I would not be bothered. I go to the doctor and say, fix my leg. Even it takes longer than my other accident because I know I've been through bad experience. So I would think I'm very good have learned a lot through life. Therefore, I have a very stable condition and I can react today on more or less everything better than other people because I know where I've been through and what I've done in the past.
While you aren't one for credit and accolades, how special was your encounter with Nelson Mandela and what he said to you?
Nelson Mandela I will never forget. He's a typical man like Ferrari, who I find as the most charismatic man. His story is unbelievable, what happened to him and what happened. What he exactly said to me I cannot recall now, but I know that it was an important moment for me to see somebody like him in what nice and calm way, even being through such a difficult life, he talks to people. He's a very charismatic personality. And I think this is the most important. You have to remember these things, not in trophies and stupid things, just remember them and recall them all the time on day-to-day life to react accordingly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.